So hello everyone. Today we'll be looking at how to answer a structured response question for both the O level as well as the N level. However, today's focus is only going to be about question 6. Okay, so if you refer back to your notes, okay, we would have actually given to you. Right now, on the left is actually the 3E set of notes, and on the right is actually the 3N set of notes. Okay, and if you really look very carefully at what we call the LOMs, okay, these are LOMs. LOMs are actually level of response marking. It's basically how you are marked in both the O level as well as the N level paper. And if you look at the 3E for question 6, which is what we are going to do today, is really about looking at giving answers, but two paragraph of answers, whereas for the 3N or N level students, you will actually be expected to just give one strategy. So that's the big difference. Okay, now for question 7 of O-level candidates or O-level students, you would actually have an extra level 4. But if you look at the marking for N level, there isn't a level 4. It's actually a level 3. Okay, but you can see that this level 3, which says explain one factor, and the O level 3 is the same. That means there is a need to explain factors. Okay, it's just that the marking or the marks is slightly different. All right, and part B is basically about how you write, which we'll cover in a bit. Okay, so now is the how to answer the structure response question, and we are looking at the level of response marking for O-level students. Okay, so now we look at how the 7 marks is actually divided between the different levels. Okay, so for level 1, for example, we are looking at answers that just describe. That means you're not really answering the question, you're just stating what is really obvious from the extracts. Okay, so what is extracts? I will explain to you in a bit. Now, level 2 is 2 to 4 marks. It is when you identify one strategy or reason. 3 marks is given for identifying 2 strategies or reason. So when I say identify, it's really just one basic line, okay? And 4 marks is if an O-level candidate or an O-level student is able to describe a little bit about strategies and reasons. Now, you get 5 to 7 marks if you explain, and the key word here is explain. Okay, 5 to 6 marks for explaining one strategy, 6 to 7 marks for explaining 2 strategies. So for both O level and N level, the total marks for essay is actually 15 marks. So you're able to get 7 marks for O level students if you are able to explain 2 strategies or two reasons depending on the question itself. Okay, so now we will be looking at the N level, okay, how to answer. So the LOMs or the level of response marking for N level candidates or N level students are slightly different. Okay, so for level 1, you are describing the topic and you are able to get as high as 1 to 2 marks. For level 2, if you identify or describe a strategy or reason, okay, it's 3 to 5 marks. Okay, so award 3 marks for identifying one strategy and 4 to 5 marks for identifying that one strategy. Now you will get 6 to 7 again if you're able to explain the strategy or reason. So basically the difference between O level and N level is just that in O level question 6 you are supposed to give 2 strategies, whereas in N level question 6 you are supposed to just give 1 strategy. So just now I mentioned extract. So this is an example of an extract. So this whole extracts will be 15 marks, okay? Or it will be in your structured response question. All right, and extracts are basically just knowledge that is given. Now, if it is extracts 1, it serves as trigger. In fact, all the extracts just serve as trigger. Okay, so question 6 basically will allow you to use your current knowledge or whatever knowledge that you have about the topic. Whereas question 7 of both O level and N level, there is a specific content that you can study. And sometimes extracts 2 and 3, which only answer question 7, it is actually to trigger that specific knowledge. So extract 1 can be a picture, it can be an article, it can be an infograph, and then later on I'll show you an example. So just now what we saw was actually just an extract. Okay, it might be something that you have not come across and you cannot really get the information from the textbook, but if let's say the topic is on shaping governance or issue 1, then definitely is something that we have discussed in class before. Okay, now how should a student answer? Because this is a free response question where students' knowledge and ideas and class discussions can be used to answer the question, and it really requires logic and again answering towards the question. Okay, so this is very important. It can be a picture, an article, or even an infograph. Whereas for question 7, that requires you to look at extracts 2 and 3, okay, you can see the one in yellow. The content would be something that's very familiar, okay, so it is good for you to, of course, read the textbook before the exams, and especially before the national exams. But how should a student answer? Do not lift the examples from extract 2 and 3. You should use the content that you have read and understood from the textbook. Now, even if you were to lift any examples from the extracts, okay, it is just as helping guides. You need to describe a little bit more. You need to sort of explain a little bit more. So, question 7 is something that you can revise and you can use the textbook as reference. That means prior to taking the exams. Okay, so that is the difference between question 6 as well as question 7. Okay, so now is the part where I'll go through with you how to write. Okay, so there's many ways of writing. I think in some of your other classes you learn peel, right? In some of the other classes you learn about how to write, for example, inference, explain, and then you have the elaboration part. But specifically for social studies, we want you to remember these 3 concepts, which is exactly the same how you've been writing. So it's not something new. Okay, so we're using the what, how, why method, which is basically your peel method. All right, what is actually your point? Okay, and it's really about the main ideas, suggestions, concepts that you want to discuss. How is basically your examples as well as your elaboration. Okay, how does the example look like? Can you describe a little bit about your example? And remember when I went through with you the LOMs, at least if you describe, you'll be able to pass that question. Okay, now the difference between passing and getting that high marks, which is a level 3 marks, okay, is when you answer the why. So why question is how do you answer back? How do you link back to the question? And we're going to take a look at it in a bit. So how do you answer question 6 specifically? Okay, so you can see this is a step-by-step guide. So step 1, unpack the question. Okay, step 2 is brainstorm for strategies and frame your mind. So I'm going to introduce to you this circle of influence. For some of you, it may not be something that is new. I think you do use it for oral. Okay, so you look at the individual's perspective, the community's perspective, and the government's perspective. So that means when you look at strategies, you look at the three different point of view. Okay, and specifically if you look at this sort of graphic organizer, so what is a possible strategy, how do the strategies look like, and why would the strategy work? So you can look at it again in terms of the different influence or the different perspectives, individual, community, and government. So for N level, okay, one paragraph of this would be sufficient, whereas for the O level, you would need to write, for example, 2 paragraphs. So let's go back to your notes, okay? And if you look at your notes, this is both for the O level as well as for the N level, for both 3E as well as 3N. You can see that this was last year's Unity end of the year social studies paper. And you can see that we gave both the 3N students as well as the 3E students the same extract one. So once you get an extract like this, remember we said that the extracts could be an infograph, it could be a picture, it could be just something textual, text, okay, just written words. It's possible. So for this is an infograph, and you can see it says bin your trash, return your tray. It's the same thing. Okay, so how do you go about answering the question? First, again, remember, we need to unpack the question. Okay, so refer back to again to your notes. Okay, so if you look very carefully, this is question 6, or this is a way question 6 can be asked. All right, so again, you see extract 1, same for both 3E and 3N, for both O level and N level. But the difference is actually, in your opinion, how can Singaporeans effectively maintain? So this is the key word here, effectively maintain. And for the 3E or O level students, it's with reference to 2 strategies. Whereas for the 3N and N level students, it is with reference to 1 strategy. But you can see the question is asking you the same thing. How can Singaporeans effectively maintain public cleanliness? All right. Now, for the sake of knowledge, we are going to take a look at what does it mean to look at the strategies in terms of individuals' perspective, community, as well as government. Okay, so for this, you would have to copy into your notes. There is no space for it. You can copy at the back or take a piece of paper and put it together, because I think this is a very important point. Now, for both O level as well as N level, when we talk about strategies, we look at individual. Okay, so for the individual perspective, what can you say? You can say that, oh, how can an individual make a difference? What can an individual do? Or what can an individual do to get the family involved? So when we talk just now about maintaining public cleanliness, how can or what can an individual do? Okay, when we talk about community, we talk about schools. What can schools do? What can NGO, stands for non-government organizations, do? What can community centers do? What can residential organization or residential corners do? Okay, so later on you'll see an example. And for the third one, from a government's perspective, okay, a government can, for example, raise awareness. And it's only the government that can have punitive or punishment. That means you could either fine someone, you could increase the fine, the punishment, and only the government can do this. So remember, you look at the different strategies, right? And the different strategies can come from an individual. The different strategies can come from a community. The different strategies can come from government. Okay, so going back to this particular question, remember, okay, so in the picture, it does show you about the example of returning your trash and return your tray. Now, you cannot then give the example, the same example that comes from this extract. Okay, you cannot. You must think of something else. Okay, they gave you this as an example because it is just to trigger. So in the national exam, in the end of the year exam, you must give you must give your answers, okay, something that is different from whatever extracts that they are showing you, whatever example that they are showing you. So this is very important. Okay, so for this, you can copy into your notes. I think there is a part there for you to copy. So again, let's recap the question. The question is, in your opinion, how can Singaporeans effectively maintain public cleanliness? And you cannot, like what I repeat just now, you cannot give the example of returning the tray, right, in a hawker center. So as an individual, what can you do? Okay, you can remind your family members not to litter. And this is an individual perspective or an individual action to spread awareness. Individuals can also bring a small trash bag, right, to throw litter if you cannot find a rubbish bin, rather than you just throw anyhow, or you throw on the floor. You're irresponsible. So bring a small trash bag. So this is a possible strategy. Now, for the community's perspective, or residents to start a Keep Clean campaign that involve the community, that involve the neighbor, right? This is something that you can do. So this is identifying a strategy. So in your answer, you must describe a little bit. And this does not come specifically in the textbook. It can be something that you have experienced before. It could be something that we have discussed in class. Now, another thing about community is you can talk about schools, right? I think I've seen the Environment Club doing this. Schools can have a pick litter campaign around the community, and it can be even part of your VIA. So this is something that you may have gone through, and you can write it as part of your answer. How about the government? Okay, remember we talk about how a government can raise awareness either through campaigns like what you saw what you saw in the extracts, the returning the tray, right? It's actually a poster. Road shows, social media, get influencers involved, to spread the awareness about public hygiene or public cleanliness. Or you can fine, you can penalize, you can increase the penalty for littering. I'm not sure right now how much you have to pay if you're caught littering, but maybe to increase the fine to maybe $500, $1,000, and then you have publicly you wear that jacket and you have to actually go and clean up. Maybe that could be a way to deter, to stop, irresponsible Singaporeans to effectively maintain public cleanliness. Now, again, all the ones in these very light yellow boxes are all just strategies. It's just identifying. Now, what you need to do is the most important part to get yourself the higher mark is always to link back to question. How these strategies can effectively maintain public cleanliness. Okay, so how now with the understanding of what are strategies, okay, how do you write it out as an essay? Okay, now you have this in your notes, but before that, go back to the question. In your opinion, how can Singaporeans effectively maintain public cleanliness? Now, in your notes, the strategy that was chosen, the what that was chosen, was community. Okay, it really focused on how the community can organize clean the neighborhood or keep your neighborhood clean. Now, how? An example. So, if you were to just write this, it is still a description. What you need to do is you need to describe it. You need to give a bit more specific examples. Okay, so what are the examples? RC volunteers, residential committees can engage the residents, sign up using social media via pamphlets pasted near the lift lobbies. Residents could be given tokens of appreciation, such as reusable tote bags or t-shirts, right? Because sometimes, Singaporeans, they need a bit of motivation. Like, why should I sacrifice my weekends to pick a litter, right? Especially when it comes to things to do with litter. Okay, but this, just by writing your what, just by writing your how, is not enough to get you the highest, which is a level 3 marks. So you must always remember to link it to why is it effective. Because why? The question is asking about, in your opinion, how can Singaporeans effectively. So if you do this clean the neighborhood or keep our neighborhood clean, how does it ensure the effectiveness? Okay, this measure is effective. Answer the question, because now residents around the neighborhood will be reminded to keep the cleanliness. Because why? They participated in the campaign. And as a result, it will ensure more pleasant living, improving public cleanliness, lesser pollution or the spread of disease or contamination. But the most important is they will be reminded, they will self-check, because why? They were involved previously in a campaign. So you can see that just by writing strategies does not mean that you can hit the highest level. You still need to ensure that your answer is actually linking back to the question. And what does the question ask? Effectively. Okay, so I hope you understand that part. Okay, so this is the end of structured response question. Okay, for both O level and N level for question 6. Coming soon, it will be question 7. Okay, so stay tuned for the video on that. So have a good learning day, everybody. Okay, make sure that you revise using this set of video. Bye bye.